Welcome to the Guided Podcast, where we support you to find the courage to listen and act. I'm Amanda Goolsby, and with me is
Katz.
Let's get started.
I am back from Egypt, and I wanted to record this episode for you while it's still fresh for me, although there is a lot that I haven't yet worked through. And so there will be an update as I go and process everything that has arisen and have the courage to act, because the listening is here. I'm listening. I understand what I'm hearing, and now I get to have the courage to act. So, in my last episodes, I shared with you that going to Egypt was likely to bring up some remaining wounds from my childhood around not fitting in, around exclusion. And it definitely did that. The great part, though, is that whereas in my childhood experience, it brought those wounds up in a way where I made it, I took it personally. I believed that I was being excluded because there was something wrong with me. This time around, with the benefit of, 40 years of learning to navigate this world, I realized that there's not anything wrong with me, and I wasn't even actually being excluded. Funny enough. And that my feelings around being excluded are actually protective mechanisms created by me. So, and then projected outwards on my environment to create a narrative that keeps me separate. Now, why would I do that? Why would we collectively do that? Because this is something that we do. Maybe you're recognizing this as something you do, that you often feel not part of, you often feel excluded, you often feel separate, you often feel that you don't fit in. In fact, interestingly, this trip to Egypt, the theme of it was belonging. The primary organizer is a woman named Radha Agrawal. She wrote the book Belong. And her entire mission and the mission of her team with Daybreaker is to create belonging. And she's creating a center called the Belong Center. And yet here I am on this trip and feeling separate. I can create the story of feeling excluded or not fitting in, but that's not what's actually true. I wasn't being excluded and I wasn't not fitting in. What is true is that I, as the creator of my reality, created an experience for myself of separation that my mind labels excluded or don't fit in to protect me. Now, to protect me from what? To protect me from what? Why do we do this? Why do we create these labels to protect ourselves? Because feeling the level of vulnerability that we would be required to feel in order to make ourselves available to connection is really scary, is really terrifying to the part of ourselves that is tender, that is sensitive, that is afraid of getting hurt. And for most of us, we can look at our very, very, very early childhood, even our birth experiences, even our experiences in the womb, as the source of that. Now, obviously, when we were in the womb or when we were pre-verbal, we weren't being excluded, right? except that there is some part of us that wasn't being met. There was some part of us that our parents didn't have the tools to connect with. The most tender part. The part that needed connection at like the core of our being. And yet, for those of us that carry these wounds and needed to learn to rely on ourselves because our parents were under-resourced or didn't have the tools for connection or didn't have the consciousness for connection or were in some sort of their own trauma response to their own parents, their own childhood, we came into this world, we were born into this world needing to create this protection. And then throughout our lifetime, replicating these patterns. And I'm sharing this with you because I believe that awareness can give us choice. If we don't have awareness, and thank you to Adam Roa, my dear friend Adam Roa, for that one. If you don't yet know Adam Roa, go look him up. R-O-A, Adam, R-O-A. He has an incredible song on Spotify, Our Thoughts. It's just called Our Thoughts. So good. Listen to it.
By the end of this flow, I want you to know one thing. Our thoughts are the results of our beliefs. That's really important, so let me repeat, whether they are joyful or angry or even full of grief, our thoughts are the results of our beliefs. So why are you thinking the things you are thinking? And why are you speaking the things you are speaking?
So awareness of these patterns can then give us choice. And part of being guided is to be guided to see where you have choice, that you haven't known that you had choice. Right? So I can go into a situation like this trip to Egypt, and without awareness, I can just replicate the same old patterns. Oh, I'm being excluded. Oh, I don't fit in. Oh, I don't belong. And interestingly, on the boat, many people shared their own experiences of having that experience. Among this incredible group of people who are actually so connected to themselves and each other, and yet still having moments of not belonging on a trip where the theme is belonging. And so, with that awareness, as adult humans, part of the adulting process is that we get to notice that we are the creators and remember that we are the creators and remember that we are choosing the lens that we look at life through. So here I am on this trip. I knew going in that it was going to be an opportunity for me to look at some of this. For me to look at it from this adult lens that I now have, from this grown-up view where I'm no longer a child. I can't make sense of it. I can make sense of it. Okay, great. So now my mind has made sense of it. I actually do belong. I actually do fit in. I'm not being excluded. I am included. So, why? That's the what, by the way. That's what is true. That is what is true. And yet, I feel separate. I feel apart. I feel as if I don't fit in. Why am I creating that for myself? It is not life doing it to me. It is not them doing it to me. It is me creating that. Why am I doing that? because there's something to be healed. And the path to healing is through feeling. You've heard me say it again and again. So I'm being guided to feel something here. And I can feel, what I can currently feel is the protectors. What I can currently feel is the parts of me that are protecting me from feeling the depth of the pain that is underneath. The trip, the people on the trip, the circumstances that I have created are giving me the opportunity to feel it. Now it's up to me to access the feelings. And for me, I can't do that alone. I can't do that alone. I can access it alone. It's just much more difficult for me to access it alone. The best way that I know to access it is to get support. That could be with a somatic therapist. That could be with a friend who knows how to take me there. That could be with, I could end up creating that through like a fight with somebody. That's probably one of the ways I think that most of us do it. Actually, because we don't have consciousness around all of this, we'll actually find a way to access the feelings through a fight, through a conflict that brings up the feelings so that we can't avoid it. That's not necessary. And I can actually, interestingly enough, and I'm happy to be able to share this with you right now, I can notice since I've returned from Egypt that there have been a few places where I've wanted to pick a fight. And I believe that the reason that I want to do that is to bring up these feelings that need to be felt, that are being held at bay. And I'm aware enough to know that that's what's happening, so I'm not going to pick that fight. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the right outlet for these feelings. I'm going to find the right outlet for these feelings. I'm going to reach out to my therapist about having a session with her. I'm going to ask a friend that I feel safe enough with to feel these feelings with, to allow my vulnerability to come forward, to have that level of intimacy with, because it's very intimate for me. To not just talk about what's happening here, to not just talk about the feelings like I'm doing here with you, but to actually feel them. So vulnerable. And I know it's the only way to the other side. And until I do it, the way that it exists in me is that I'm operating in kind of a fog. I'm operating in kind of a fog. There's like a layer, a wall, a shield almost. It's a clear shield. I can see through it. I can live my life through it. But until I feel these feelings, there's like a layer of protection, a shield, a wall of sorts between me and life itself. So I'm not fully in life. Instead, I'm behind this wall. And I think most of us live our entire lives behind this wall. It's safer back here, but it's not. It's not. It's just our mind that think that it is the part of ourselves that didn't know how to feel safe enough to feel the feelings all the way through. That created this. And it really worked. It really worked so that we could like function in the world. And there comes a point in time, and that is certainly here for me, and I imagine it's here for you too, where we don't want to live behind the wall anymore. I don't want to live my life with a belief around separation. I don't want to live my life with a belief around not fitting in and exclusion. Those stories don't serve me. They don't serve you. and they're not true. Now, I will say there may be behaviors that you are exhibiting or that you are creating that have it be true that you're not fitting in or that you're not belonging. And those are behaviors that are created by you, that if you choose to change them, you can. Listen to a future episode that Amanda and I will do together around the ways that we create separation, the ways that we keep ourselves separate, the ways that we show up in the world that once we see the behaviors, we can stop doing them. So for now, I just wanted to bring you this wrap up from Egypt. My next step here is to get on the other side of this wall. It is to feel these feelings that I'm sitting with that have not fully been felt yet. I will say that being in Egypt with my kids was pretty fantastic. I think it was a breakthrough experience for both kids. Just a couple of those experiences that I can share are that, number one, they got to see a full range of experience that they had never seen before. And I believe that one of the ways that we are able to create lives that are truly worth living is to see beyond what we can see. I remember when my daughter was learning to ride her bike. She must have been 4 or 5 years old, and she begins to ride. And I hear her whispering something underneath her breath as I'm running next to her, and she's whispering, beyond what I can see, beyond what I can see, beyond what I can see. And that was such a wow moment. She knew that she needed to go beyond what she could see. And seeing more of what's possible will bring you beyond there. And one of the things that occurred on the ship is the organizers ran an auction and had collected all these auction items and were running this auction to benefit 10 organizations that are supporting the regeneration of the Nile, plus the creation of the Belong Center, Radha's Belong Center in upstate New York, to eradicate loneliness. And my kids got to see this auction occur and raise $1.5 million in one evening. And I think that was a mind expander for them, to be able to see that, to be able to see people bidding significant amounts of money on these auction items, stretched their awareness around money. And I think that's really valuable for them to be able to see this just other reality than one that they have lived in themselves, so that they can have a fuller range experience of their own relationship to money. So that was one thing. Then there was a talent show one night, and I went to sleep the night of the talent show, and my kids went, and my daughter performed. And the next day, so many people came up to me and said, "Oh my God, your daughter's voice. Wow. 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 Oh my God, your daughter's voice. Holy wow. She really needs to do something with that voice." And they said it to her as well. And her voice is unique, and she has not focused on her voice in the way that she could. And I believe that now she might. And I'll certainly keep encouraging her to do that, because she does have a really unique voice. And we got to talk about it. Like, why are you not focusing on your voice? You know, it's something special. Why are you not focusing on it? She does karaoke every Saturday night. And she expressed to me that she's afraid of being famous. And that makes a lot of sense. During her really formative years, I was experiencing a measure of fame that did not land well for her. It was when I was experiencing the shadow side of fame and got picked up by a hater blog. We'll talk about that on a future episode. And this hater blog wrote really, really, really terrible things about me. And by extension, about her. And so she experienced the really negative side of fame. And now she's been hiding her voice because of that. And my hope is that this trip will unleash her voice in a new way and a new willingness, perhaps, to let it be heard. And, she and I can talk about how to mitigate the potentially negative impact of fame. And I wonder how many of you actually are holding back your voice because of that. And so there will certainly be a future episode here about fame and the negative impacts of it, and how to be willing to share your voice anyway. I'm certainly working through that now. Here I am, showing back up in the world, unleashing my voice, sharing my story. And yeah, the last time I did that, it had some pretty negative impacts. The last thing that I'll say about the trip is that I found a mentor on the trip. She was a pharaoh, the only female pharaoh, Hatshepsut. And this pharaoh, Hatshepsut, in order to be a pharaoh, had to present as a king. She had to present, even though she was a woman, and did not hide that she was a woman. Everyone knew that she was a woman, although sometimes she is depicted with a false beard, interestingly enough. She was called king. And I haven't had a huge number of examples of women in the world that are holding their power in the way that I desire to and do hold power in their companies. And I'm always looking for more examples of incredibly powerful women that are balancing their masculine and feminine in ways that I can model. Because I'm learning that. I was so masculine for so many years. And through that masculine place, I was so successful as Alexis Martin Neely. It was a very masculine expression of me. And then as Ali Shanti came to be, and I found this deeply tender feminine part of me, Ali Shanti, these two were at war inside of me, Alexis Martin Neely and Ali Shanti. There was a war between my masculine and my feminine, and Ali Katz is the integrated whole. The place where these two meet. And I have a sense that Hatshepsut mastered that in ways that I'm projecting onto her, of course. Perhaps she didn't master it. Perhaps she had to hold too much masculine in ways that weren't healthy. But I will project onto her the story of an integrated masculine feminine being. I did some research on her in honor of Mother's Day yesterday, and she was a mother as well. There's not a lot of writing about that. And it's possible that, in fact, she adopted Moses before she was Pharaoh, actually, that she adopted Moses, and she was responsible for the education of Moses and for what Moses became through her feminine, through her nurturing self. And then she also, as she stepped into her pharaohship, she was the pharaoh who was the best at getting her message out into the world and getting seen and known as king through her king energy. And so I'm in this curiosity for myself of, how do I embody more Hatshepsut? And claim my king energy in a really powerful way? I hold king energy. And I am very feminine. I am a feminine being that holds king energy. And how do those two get to dance inside of me? And the biggest question that I'm sitting with right now is, where does partnership sit for me within that paradigm? And I'm listening for the guidance to find that. Now that I am not likely to be a mother again, there was a fertility circle at the Temple of Isis, and I didn't step in. I didn't step into the fertility circle. That was kind of big for me, actually, to say to myself, I'm not going to have more children through this body. Because I always thought that I would have 2 before 30, which I did, and then 2 after 40. And it seems to me that those 2 after 40 will come to me in a different way. I'm giving up on the dream of twins at 50. I'm not claiming a desire to continue my fertility, although I am taking hormones. So I'm in a curiosity about that. And where then does partnership fit into my life from this perspective? This is the first time, really the longest time, I won't say the first time, but the longest time that I've been single, sovereign since I was 13. It is May of 2023. I married myself in February of 2022. And then I did get into a relationship after that that was perfectly painful, to allow me to feel some of the last remnants that I needed to feel of some really intense pain around love and relating. And now coming out the other side of that concluded in August. I went all the way. I felt that pain all the way in June, July, August of last year. And since then, I've been sovereign, single with myself, and with myself in a really beautiful way. And it's now May. I haven't officially been on a no-man diet, but feels like I've been on a no-man diet at the same time. And something I've really, 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 really resisted in the past. And now I get to be in this really deep inquiry of the role of partnership in my life, not coming at it from any sort of a need or addiction to relationship, which I think was really present for me in the past. And just in this big curiosity of, what do I actually want? What do I actually want? And that came up on the trip as well. Because I was with some people that I deeply respect in their partnership, Eben Pagan and Annie Lala, Stephen Brooks and Andrea Belen, Bear and Katyana Kate, Radha, Agrawal, and Eli Clark Davis, Charmaine and Mike are my partners in the Modern Monastery we're creating. So I got to be with these beloveds in partnership, who are in partnership in ways that I deeply respect and find so beautiful. And I feel curious. Do I still want that? And what if I don't want that? And then there was this couple there, Amy and David. Oh my God. They were just absolutely the cutest. Their devotion and love for each other. They wore these matching outfits most of the days together, and just this incredible devotion and adoration they have of each other. And I think I do want that. But what role does partnership have in my life, especially if I am claiming king? So I'm sitting with that question. And I will be back here to explore it with you in a future episode for sure, to support you in listening for your own answers and then having the courage to act. So currently I am in a courage to act moment a courage to act and feel what is on the other side of these feelings. Like feel these feelings that have arisen from this trip to Egypt. My feelings around not belonging, my feelings around exclusion, my feelings around not fitting in, none of which is true. They're just pointing to the feelings that get to be felt. Those stories, those words I've made up are pointing to a place where I get to feel what's underneath through my body, in my heart, so that I can heal it. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to share it with you. So my encouragement from this episode is for you to look at where you might be creating stories that are causing you pain, so that you have an opportunity to move towards those stories, to move towards that pain, to move towards the vulnerability safely, in a safe way, to create an experience for yourself where you can feel that all the way through. Whether it's with a friend, not so likely, honestly, with a guide, a therapist, a mentor, somebody who is trained in holding space, somebody who can create an environment to take you there safely. That's what I would recommend. I don't recommend you trying to go there alone. I don't recommend you trying to go there with friends. I recommend that you get professional support in whatever way that looks like for you, that you get professional support. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to report back. My professional support may very well come in the form of a workshop that I'm going to attend. I'll just say one more thing before I go. I was supposed to be in Alaska this week, or driving my son across Canada to Alaska this week. And at the very last minute, we decided that instead of me going with him, his girlfriend should go with him. And that would give them more time, and that would give them a whole rite of passage experience. And that seems right. And what that does for me is opens up the possibility for me to do a workshop where I could get the opportunity to feel this pain all the way through. And so if I go, I will tell you. If I choose another path, I will tell you. I'll be back with more to come. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful day.
If you enjoy the Guided podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to come back next week. Until then, this is Katz and
Amanda Goolsby.
And remember, life knows.